everyone. My name is Shannon Brett and I am the curator and the creator of the exhibition and project Rite of Passage. I'm a proud Waka Waka, Garang Garang and Butchulla person currently based in Meanjin, Brisbane. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional owners and the keepers of this beautiful land that I live upon, honouring ancestors and all Indigenous peoples of this country, past, present and future. I'm delighted to welcome you to yet another in our series of talks today, featuring two exceptional artists in Glennys Briggs and Nici Cumpston. Hello there, artists.
Hello, Shan. Good to see you. Hello, everyone.
Good to see you. Hi. Okay, so Glennys, can we start with you?
Yes.
You and your practice are currently based on the Gold Coast, and your artwork is broadly featured in Rite of Passage. And the work demonstrates your experience as a multidisciplinary artist, which is fascinating. Can you please tell us a bit about yourself and also, as an artist, why you choose to work with so many different materials?
Well, I'm a Yorta Yorta Tangerang woman from Victoria who's been living on the Gold Coast now for about 11 years. Been in Queensland for about close to 15. And I've been an artist for quite some time, mainly dealing with doing painting. But I did a Bachelor of Arts degree, which changed my view of the art world and art practice. And I got very interested in printmaking. And so most of my practice is done around printmaking, although I use other mediums to express and tell my stories. So I do sculptural pieces. Sometimes I do clay work. And I do possum skin cloak making. So there's many things I use to be able to tell the stories. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, Glennys. And Nici, you're living and working in Adelaide, and you're really doing such important work throughout our greater community, and I think we all appreciate that so very much. Also in terms of your own artwork and also promoting the artwork of other mob. Can you tell us and our audience about yourself and your artistic cultural journey thus far?
Sure, thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you and Glennys and talking about my practice. So yes, I'm a Barkindji woman. I live and work here on Kaurna country, but my family come from far western New South Wales, and it's, you know, a real honour to live here on Kaurna country. I've been here for over 30 years and I currently work at the Art Gallery of South Australia, and I'm also a practising artist and absolutely love creating works of art that share stories of my family connections to the Murray and the Barker, our Darling River, and try to, through creating photographs, to talk about the Aboriginal connection to country, to you know, really just all of these important sites, and by being able to walk around country and to be able to see the beautiful trees and just to see, you know, the Aboriginal occupation of country played out on country is really what I'm trying to portray in my work. I think that we have, you know, these beautiful waterways, but they're threatened as a result of the commodification of water, and, you know, that it's a resource that can be bought and sold. And it's really such a vital part of Aboriginal cultures that you know, and for all living and breathing people and animals and fish all along these waterways, that it's really about trying to raise awareness of these important places and how we can treasure them and honour them.
Absolutely. Thank you both for sharing. I think what I'd like to do now is move to some imagery, some images, and take a closer look at your work as part of the exhibition. And let's take a look here. We'll start with your work, Glennys.
Yes.
So you have many works in Rite of Passage, but today we'll concentrate on discussing Swallow These Words, work finalised at the beginning of this year. I have Smallpox 2020 and the 2017 work, Sweet Damper. Glennys, can you tell us to begin with about Swallow These Words? This
is an emu egg sitting in a butter dish, a colonial, very old butter dish or sweet dish. The emu egg, we ate the emu egg as children, you know, when Dad would go out and get some of the eggs and also like the emu meat. And so I used the symbol of the emu egg as a food, indigenous food, but etched onto the shell of the egg, I've put words that represent the things that have happened to our people since colonisation, the stolen generation, the massacres, rape, the land that was taken. All these words are sitting in this bowl that was used for, I suppose, typical English foods. So my explanation on this particular piece of art is, can you swallow these words?
Yeah, right. It's so layered, this work. There's like level after level of, I feel like we could talk about this work for so long, and it's this small piece that to me is just large. It speaks volumes. Thank you for that. Can we go to this work, I Have Smallpox? Another really poignant work and quite devastating in its meaning. And I'm wondering if you could talk about the registry of blankets, so the annual distribution of blankets, and also introduce diseases, and perhaps let me know if I'm on the right track with this work.
Absolutely. Well, originally the government blankets were handed out to people, and the blankets were slowly replaced the possum skin cloaks that kept the people warm and kept them safe, and had many uses that sheltered them and kept them dry, kept them well. And then the blankets were passed down. These were government blankets. They were made of wool, which people never had on their skin before. So these weren't protecting. In fact, these were actually very bad for the people, for trying to keep the warmth in, for trying to protect themselves. They weren't any use in doing that. I've put the stamp on the government, on the blankets, to show that these were blankets that were handed out by the government. And there were times when these blankets were passed around, which had been used to cover other people that had smallpox. the smallpox was passed on to our people by the use of these blankets. So the blanket itself was very devastating to us.
And I see it as it's just another symbol. It's like another symbol of colonization. So it's this object that's replacing culture in terms of taking away the possum skin cloak, replacing it with this introduced object. And then we could go on and I think discuss introduced species, but that's another conversation. Yeah. But then we've got these introduced diseases that wiped out our mobs at alarming rates. So this work is just so deep and powerful. And thank you for having this in the exhibition, by the way.
Thanks, Shane.
I want to talk about this Sweet Damper series. So we've got here these printed possum skin cloaks. So there's two separate prints, two different prints printed on the inside of the possum skin. Can you...
Okay. I've used two different prints on this particular artwork, this piece. I also made flour sacks with these prints on them. But one print alone doesn't tell me enough. So I used two different prints straight onto the possum skin, because the possum skin is a iconic piece to our people. Yeah. It was used in so many ways, and I use the possum skins a lot. I want to pay respects to this animal because it gave us so much. Now the two different prints. This print in particular we're looking at now, it's got a fingerprint on it, and I use my fingerprint, and it's a way of I suppose recognition that I'm part of this land. This is part of me. This is a part of my DNA is in this land. So I've used the fingerprint, but also there is a telegraph that was sent to a governor from a settler asking for a cask of arsenic. Now the arsenic was used to get rid of animals and people of property, to make way for the settlers and for their livestock. The arsenic was put into the flour and either passed around or made into a bread, which is called sweet damper. The settlers would call it sweet damper because the damper was contained arsenic, and this was passed out to get to actually eradicate people and animals from the property they needed to raise their stock on. So it's got lots of different aspects to this one story. It can go on for a few chapters.
Yeah. It is entirely tragic. It is a tragedy, but it's also, I'm loving the way that you're including these actual documents, these resources, if you will, about the stories, the true stories of this country and what happened to our people here. I have an image here just for perspective, so we can see how the size of the possum skins, the beautiful possums here, and this install shot was taken at the QUT Art Museum at the first location of Rite of Passage. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for allowing me to show these works, Shan. Any work I do, takes a piece out of me. These histories, I do paint pretty, print pretty pictures. They're not all sad, but our histories need to be told, and I want to tell them.
I like the historic ones. I think you're doing a good thing for us, Glennys. Thank you. Let's take a look at your work now, Nici. We've got these 3 phenomenal works in Nukamka Rushes, excuse my pronunciation, 2008 to 14, Ringbarked 2, Nukamka Lake, 2011 to 14, and Tree Stumps, Western Shoreline, Nukamka, 2008 to 10. And these titles here are installed here, again at the QUT Art Museum, left to right. Their presence is just ghostly and majestic all at the same time. You can feel the energy and the life and the death, I think, just radiating from them. They're just so stunning. I'm wondering, Nici, if you can tell us the stories about these works, how they relate to you, and also if you can tell us about the date ranges in your titles for these works.
Yeah, sure. These particular works, so the date range for each work indicates the first date is the date that I created the image. Mm-hmm. The way that I work is that I photograph using black and white film, and these 3 images are all, I've created them using a camera that is, the negative is 2 1/4 times the length of a normal negative. So it's a Hasselblad camera, and so it gives you that beautiful panoramic format. So I've photographed these works out around Nukamka, which is otherwise known as Lake Bonnie, in the town of Barmera in the Riverland of South Australia. And this particular location is a place where Barkindji people travelled those inland lakes and walked all the way from Murruwinji National Park, north of Broken Hill, all the way along the river, through the Riverland, and all the way to Coomeraunk, which is the mouth of River Murray, quite close to Adelaide. So there were connections with different language groups. This particular location in this work here, Ringbark 2, is a site where people have gathered for millennia. There's a midden here that I estimate goes for over 1.5 kilometres long. Wow. I don't know how deep it is because it's never been excavated and there hasn't been an archaeological survey done on this site. But all around these trees was evidence of Aboriginal occupation. There were flint stones, there were all sorts of, areas where people have had campfires. So there are all of the shell grit, the bones of fish, of animals. And the reason why the tree roots are exposed and that these trees are dead is what happened was when the locks and the weirs were put in for irrigation purposes in the early 1900s, all of these inland lakes became bigger than they originally were. So this is the original shoreline. So these trees were once alive and majestic and, sheltering people. They were, this was the original shoreline. But then when the locks and weirs came in, the lake flooded.
Yeah. These
trees flooded, and as a result, they died. Mm. And then what happened during the drought years, so there was a 10 to 12 year drought that happened between around 2006 to around 2012. And what happened was the water was stopped. The freshwater flow of water into the lakes was stopped by the federal government so that the water would remain in the river. And so all of these inland lakes started to putrefy.
Yeah.
So the water receded. All of this sulfuric acid rose to the surface. So it was a stinking mess. Fish died. And it was, you know, birds died. It was just an absolute ecological disaster. But what it did enable was for me to walk around. So I walked around with my camera and I photographed, and I got to see all of this evidence of Aboriginal occupation, which previously was underwater. And now today it's back underwater. So even though there's been, you know, that disaster happened, it did enable me to see and to experience and to realise the importance of this site, that our family was just one of the language groups that would have gathered along these waterways and camped and exchanged knowledge and information. There were big sites of exchange. And
wow.
Yeah. So I've had this connection to the Riverland, to the Murray River, as well as our Barker, and not really fully understanding that connection, and that it goes so deep that ancestrally family members actually walk this country as part of that knowledge exchange process. So it's been a revelation for me to learn that, and that's been, you know, something that's come to the fore in the last 10 years. The reason for the 2 dates on the work is that first date is the date of creation of that negative, and then the following date is the date that I created that particular edition of that image.
Okay, right, gotcha.
And because they start as black and white images, I scan the negative and then have that enlarged. I used to do all my own enlarging, but I just don't have the facilities or the time anymore. So I work really closely with the printer I've worked with for about, I think it's been close to 20 years that I've worked with this particular printer.
That's great.
It's great to have that connection and to have that opportunity. So he prints things out. We do, you know, it's pretty straightforward because they're black and white images, and then I take them home and put them into the studio. And these particular works are on canvas. So I've pinned the canvas to the wall and then got out my watercolours and my pencils and just go for it and have fun and play. And
beautiful.
And it's meditative.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to think back to this site, to think about what I saw when I was there, to think about, you know, family and to reconnect. Yeah. And it always gives me, you know, that little bit of insight to then what I will write about when I write about the work.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it's like you're revisiting the journey of the work, because you're using watercolor and pencils, such intricate, the color. For those who have the privilege to see these works in the real, the color is just stunning. I love the pinks personally. The pinks are just so divine. Are the pinks, would you say that's watercolor? And you're using aquarelles as well?
So I'm using, there's a couple of different actual, Sennelier is the French watercolor that I use, and I use that because of the light fastness of the color, and also that they have a great range of transparent color, because I don't want to hide the fact that this is a photographic image.
Yeah.
I don't, So I need to, I need you to be able to see the image underneath. And so that's...
Yeah, it has this transparency. It's just wonderful. Just so vivid, the color, but still the image comes through strongly. They're just magnificent. And that was one of my questions to you. What's your process? So thank you very much for letting us know about this. And here, this image, again, just for perspective, you can see how large the works are. This install image was taken at the QUT Art Museum, and they now hang at NorthSite Contemporary Arts. Nici, I just wanted to ask you one question about the works. I've got a question here. So what do you think is the future of this country and its waterways? You're saying that there's water there now. So what happens next in these locations?
Oh gosh, good question. We need to have more of a voice as Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
And also, you know, there are other people that live along the waterways, you know, farmers and different landowners who are also deeply reliant on these waterways, and that are also advocates for us as Aboriginal people. But we need to be able to have more of a voice in Parliament to be able to be heard, and for the importance of keeping the water within these systems, so that we have that ongoing regeneration of the river gum forests and all of the other, you know, the fish that need to be able to spawn and grow. You know, there's a whole lot of considerations that or things that need to be taken into consideration that at the moment aren't. And I think that by coming together, and we are through many different ways, we're coming together to discuss and to be able to put forward our ideas for how we can work towards the future together. And I feel that even though there's currently water in the Barker, but also in the River Murray, that what happens is that they flood harvest, and that method of collecting water is what is killing our waterways, because it's all well and good when there's rains and there's water coming down from further north, but that water doesn't last. And we have to think about the longevity of what's needed for that water to sustain people all the way along the river.
Yeah, it's that voice that's carried from 80 to 2,000 generations that needs to be heard. Yeah. Thank you so much, Nici. And thank you to both of you today for being part of this conversation, joining me in this conversation, but also for joining me and the rest of the Fantastic 11 as being artists and members of this Rite of Passage journey. Thank you so much.
It's been wonderful to be part of it, Shan. Thank you.
Thank you.